Hello, I'm Dr. Lipi Roy, and welcome to my show, Health, Humor, and Harmony. As most of you know by now, I love comedy. I mean, I love it so much that it's even in the title of my show, Health, Humor, and Harmony. Mark Gregory is the nephew of legendary comic Dick Gregory. I first met Mark at a fundraiser in Harlem. I was invited by my friend and comedian Mona Sheikh. While the event's headliner was acclaimed actor John Leguizamo, the venue was anything but red carpet worthy, which we'll talk about. Mark shares his secrets to maintaining a healthy lifestyle while leading a hectic comedian's schedule. Let's get started. All righty, Mr. Mark Gregory, my friend, comedian, writer, how are you doing?
Yo, what's going on? I am amazing. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm so thrilled. I want our viewers to know that you and I met at a fundraiser event. You were doing you were one of the performers, and I distinctly remember it being at not exactly your most red carpet kind of venue. I believe it was at
It was
a
yes,
gymnasium at a community center. I don't know if it was a YMCA. I
it
believe the
was it
temperature
was
was about -20.
yes, it was a YMCA in Harlem. Uh like the YMCA that Dr. J played in, like Julius Irving, Lou Alcindor, who's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, that YMCA. Nothing changed about it. Yeah, still cold and crickety.
And then you made some joke to me afterwards, which is why I really remember you so well about the remember the basketball, the headboard was like had like ice over it. It was just so cool.
Yes. And then I also said, because the event was for the homeless, remember that? It
Oh
was
yeah.
a fundraiser for the homeless. And I said, this venue is bad when you can't get homeless people to come in here. That is the telltale sign that you've picked the worst venue in New York.
And I think they also promoted the event as having like food, beverages, and snacks. And if I recall correctly, it was basically bags of Cheetos,
Chips,
Frito-Lays, and
cookies.
2 liter sodas. On a
Yes,
folding chair table.
yes, exactly. It was not craft services at all. It was more like, hey, go grab you something.
Danny Meyer did not run the culinary services.
No, not at all.
But what I do remember from that event is that you were pretty damn funny, and then we had all the several of us met for dinner afterwards, and just through your
Mhm.
conversations, I got the pleasure of knowing you, and for the viewers who don't know, Mark is the nephew of legendary Dick Gregory, and but I've had the pleasure of seeing you, Mark, perform live several times. So not only are you very very funny yourself, I've gotten to know that you are somebody who values health very deeply. You practice health in a way that certainly resonates with me as a doctor. So I guess one of the questions I want to know is, as a working stand-up comic, you are constantly writing, traveling, performing, often late at night. How do you balance that atypical and hectic work schedule with leading a healthy lifestyle? And what does a healthy lifestyle even mean to you?
Yeah, I will be honest. One category I definitely need to do better in is sleep. But I think all of us can relate to that, especially someone like yourself who travels a lot. But in stand-up comedy, we're in comedy clubs. The food is not always good. So for me personally, I am intentional about making sure that I put certain things in my body. I'm a vegetarian, right? So that is one of the things that I'm conscious about. I just am not comfortable with the way that they process meat in this
Yeah.
country. So that's one thing that I've taken out of my diet. But for the most part, for me, again, the word is really like being intentional. If I'm at a comedy club and they don't have something that is conducive to my diet, I will look on Uber Eats and order something to the club, the venue, wherever I'm at, to ensure that I'm keeping up with my diet. Because when you are traveling through different time zones, getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep, sometimes working up, trying to meet deadlines, you have to make sure that you're putting fuel in your body. And the older you get, that is when it is even the more important. Because when you're young, in your 20s and 30s, you can kind of get away with stuff. But as you get later, in the late 30s, early 40s, your body starts to talk to you, and your body will say, hey, we don't want this anymore. And I think that's the thing that you really have to be in tune with. What is your body saying to you? And if you're listening to what your body is saying, then, you should respond and make sure that you're eating healthy. And sometimes I think it's important, even if you aren't going to go the route that I went, which is the vegetarian diet, I think it's important just to cycle off meat for at least a couple days to a week, just to allow your body to reset and digest a lot of the toxins and the impurities that you put in your body. Water is extremely important too. Water, water, water. My uncle preached water, until his deathbed, and I'm a huge proponent of it too. And I also learned that, with stand-up comedy, because of my schedule, there's ways that you can trick your body as well. So I know if I'm traveling and I have not, I didn't get a lot of sleep, I would drink 3 bottles of water before I go to bed. And what that does is it energizes you. So when I wake up in the morning, even though I didn't get to sleep, my body is properly hydrated. And a lot of people are not functionally, but a lot of people are functioning dehydrated. And it's like, yo, I'm tired. I'm always sluggish. It's like, no, you're not tired. You are dehydrated. You have not been drinking enough water.
So first of all, thank you so much for sharing all of that, Mark. I really appreciate that you shared that. And I couldn't I can't agree with you enough that hydration is so important. I think the vast majority of us are underhydrated. Some of us are certainly dehydrated. I'm curious that I usually advise patients not to drink right before bedtime, especially the ones that have trouble sleeping, because then they'll be up all night peeing. So does that not happen to you?
But I think it's worth it though. I would rather be hydrated and get up multiple times through the night and go to the bathroom. But this is the difference that I noticed. When I'm properly hydrated, I wake up just like that, right? There's no groggy, there's no sluggish feeling, versus when I'm not hydrated, it is a struggle to get up at times. So for me, it is worth it.
So really a couple of key points that I want to make sure the audience understands. First of all, what we do, you got to know your body best. So in your case, Mark, you know your body, right? You know what works for you. You're so in tune. You use the word, you're intentional, right? So you know when you're sluggish, when you're tired, when you're groggy, when you're not right, because I imagine that impacts how you think and how you write.
Exactly.
It impacts your creative process. And I'll bet, because you are already somebody who's very well hydrated, your kidneys have already adjusted. So your kidneys know to absorb that water rather than release it into your bladder and pee it out or urinate it out. But for most patients who are still not their bodies are not adjusted, they do need to, I advise them to just stay well hydrated throughout the day. But I'm guessing you do that as well.
Right. And also you also mentioned, just the mental acuity that you have, right? So it's like, do I want my mind to operate at 100% or 75%? And that really just ties back into how properly you are being hydrated and the focus. If I'm tired and sluggish, I'm not going to be at my best. And for what I do, I need my mind to be operating at 100%.
Well, I can certainly relate to that. Given my line of
Right.
work.
Yeah, you definitely can.
Making clinical decisions.
You do not want a doctor operating on you and they're sluggish, right? Nah, you don't want that. You do not want that.
Or just not thinking straight, or distracted, or groggy. Yeah, you don't want any of those things. Or like the clinical decisions.
You don't want your doctor to say it could be a cold or it could be cancer. It's one of the two. Yeah.
It starts with C. I think it's one of them. They're about the same, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, give me something definitive, doc. Come on now.
But honestly, Mark, you brought up 3 really important issues that are directly tied to health, which is nutrition. Food is medicine. Staying hydrated. I'd say 90% of the body, 80-90% is water, including our brains. And by the way, the organ in our body that requires the greatest amount of glucose and energy is the brain. And then the third thing you mentioned is sleep. We know studies already show that people that are chronically sleep deprived, they are at higher risk for developing all chronic conditions: heart disease, cancer, stroke, dementia. So I'm really, really impressed, and I appreciate that you shared that those are your 3 tips or secrets. But to me, the key word was the I word, being intentional about it, right? Really. And you accommodate. You have a crazy schedule, and so you plan in advance, either Uber Eats. In my case, if I know I'm flying to the airport, I'm going to be in the airport for the next 6 hours, I actually pack little Ziploc baggies of fruit, crackers, cheese, whatever, like
Hmm.
my own nutrition. A, you save money, and B,
Hmm.
it's just healthier, right?
It is. Yeah. And also what I do is I take my workout clothes with me on the road. I take my protein and I'll put it in a little Tupperware container. Sometimes I'll bring my blender. So when I get to a city, I'll go grab some fruit to try to maintain as close to my workout regimen and my health regimen when I'm on the road like I am at home. Because
I
that's the
was
thing. Once you fall off your regimen, if you fall off for 3 days, it could take you 2 months to get back on schedule.
Well, I'm really glad. That was my other question for you. I also know that you work out. I remember meeting you for
Mhm.
dinner, and you rode your bike there to the restaurant, and I'm like, this guy's really like impressed. Like you are very, very intentional, not only about your diet, but also about keeping yourself physically active.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes, 100%.
I'm very, very impressed. Well, Mark, you and I have had many conversations about comedy and in relation to my work as not only as a doctor but an addiction medicine doctor, we've talked a lot about drugs, alcohol, and how it's not foreign at all to the comedy world. We've unfortunately
Mhm.
lost several comedians to addiction, and that many who have, most actually have recovered. But I guess one of my
Mhm.
questions for you, as somebody who knows the field of comedy so well, as an addiction medicine doctor and a true fan of comedy, I've witnessed far too many comedians experience and sadly succumb to addiction. Do you think that comedians are specifically susceptible to drugs and alcohol more than the general public? If so, why or why not?
That's a very good question. I wouldn't say more. I wouldn't say more, but the drugs and alcohol are much more accessible, you know? So, like some of the things that we talk about in comedy, drugs and alcohol would be like a currency of comedy simply because if you are a comedian working at a comedy club, you eat and drink for free, right? So, if the liquor is there, a lot of people are going to partake of it. But I think before that, though, when you think about comedy, like at its root, comedy really comes from hurt, pain, trauma, and a lot of dark places, right? So when you think about it from that perspective, a lot of people are going to self medicate. Right, they're going to partake in the drugs, alcohol, marijuana, whatever their particular poison would be. And if you are self medicating, and then you thrust yourself into a world where everyone else is doing it, it just seems right, and it definitely makes sense. So that is historically how it has been. But I think as of lately, within the past, I would say maybe about 5 years, mental health has been a buzzword across America. So I've heard a lot of, and you can feel it because a lot of comedians are, talking about like mental health in their sets or going to see a therapist. So you can see kind of like that shift in the comedy landscape where people are taking more of a conscious approach to their mental health.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought up mental health too. We in my line of work, many of my patients, they have co-occurring addiction or substance use disorders and mental
Mm-hmm.
illness. Not always, but it's not at all uncommon for those two to
Mm-hmm.
go hand in hand. And you also mentioned a
Yeah.
great expression, which is self-medicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's more than enough data to show that the majority of people who develop an addiction, not all, but many have an underlying
Mm-hmm.
pain, trauma, emotional or physical pain, trauma, stress. And if they're not in an environment where they're getting proper support, care,
Mm-hmm.
medications, treatment, whatever, then they tend to self-medicate. So,
Right.
there's a very strong correlation between pain, trauma, and addiction.
Yeah, but I personally believe that if you are going to talk to a therapist, don't go all the time. Just kind of go periodically because you don't want to like just get fully healed. Because when you think about the correlation, you can only make like it takes a certain amount of crazy to make great art. Okay,
Because you need
you
material, right, Mark?
exactly. You don't get bad and beat it from Michael Jackson unless there's an element of crazy.
You
So
need yeah, exactly.
it got to be a little crazy. So I don't know, maybe go twice a month. Don't go every week. Because listen, the moment you become healed, you're terrible.
Your
Okay,
your
you're
your
terrible.
you and your
You
comedy career is over.
it's over with. Yeah, you're boring. Yeah, your content is terrible. Like, yo, we loved him when he was like a little alcoholic. He's not funny. So
Oh man, yeah. Well, thank you. I'm personally not going to provide that advice, but coming from you, I think that's perfect.
perfect. Yes. Yeah, I know you cannot endorse that, but right.
But this really does lead to my next question, which is you've heard this expression before that laughter is the best medicine. I think I told you this story about how I went to this event back when I was teaching at Harvard, and Harvard has all these famous alumni, including your fellow comedian Conan O'Brien. And then President Drew Faust was interviewing Conan, and there was a huge audience, and I was in the audience, and I got the opportunity to ask Conan. I said, given all the ups and downs and all the challenges you've navigated in your career, how has comedy helped you? I believe that laughter is the best medicine. And he said, first of all, I think that's wrong. Laughter is the third best medicine. Antibiotics and surgery are first and second. So it's kind of a funny response. But I'm curious, Mark, like how has laughter has kind of been and comedy's been in your genes. Your uncle, as we famously know, has been such a mentor to so many current day comics, particularly Black comedians and Black and brown comedians. But how has laughter really played a role for you in terms of like your health and how you handle your the stressors of your life?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because thinking about that question, that answer is like really relative because laughter is the best medicine depending on where you fall financially. Because if you can't afford to go to the doctor, listen, we just have to laugh this pain away and go take a nap. But for
Yep.
me, laughter was the language of our household. My sister was funny. My mom was really funny. So laughter was kind of like that medicine that kind of kept your mind off of what was going on. And I mean, even now, I've been doing comedy for, I believe, 16 years. I still remember the first time that I went to a comedy show. It was March of 2002. It was Ricky Smiley. And I mean, he was hysterically funny. And I think what happens is because even you as a doctor, you forget your impact sometimes, right? But then if you can just go back to the first time you had an encounter with the doctor before you were one, and how that made you feel, we got to connect back to those moments because it helps us to realize how impactful we are and what we do. So I say that to say, I remember when I went to this comedy show, I just remember this euphoric feeling that I had. After the show, nobody wanted to go home. We were taking pictures, and it was just a very, very good feeling. And that is what laughter does for people. It doesn't take away the problem, but it helps you forget about it for a couple days. And that is the beauty of laughter. You know what I mean? Like both of us are healers in our respective rights.
1000%. Not only, I'll even go a step further. I feel like laughter, it not only will help you maybe forget your problems and stress, I think it helps you actually deal with it even better. And
Yes.
and I think it relieves tensions between
I,
tense
yes,
relationships, right?
100%. 100%. I mean, when you think about how some of the best comedy is when you create tension, right? So when you think about some of the best jokes, it is let's push this person to the edge of uncomfortability. And we experience that in the household, right? Where your mother and your father are arguing and it's real tense in the house and somebody cracks a joke and the tension breaks. And that is
Yes.
what comedy does. It creates tension and breaks it. And then as a doctor, how the body responds physically to tension, right? And
Yes.
sometimes you may think that there's something wrong with you, but it's like, no, physically, you're not sick. You just need to release some tension. And you go to a comedy club and you're open to this medicine. You take in the laughter, you laugh, and you release the tension, and you in that moment are healed, you know?
Yeah, and the beauty is that we actually have, I mean, I'm going to wear my geek nerd science hat
Right.
here and say that like we know that laughter actually has all these benefits in terms of it releases
100%.
the happy hormones, the endorphins,
Yes. Endorphins, correct.
oxytocin, all these happy neurotransmitters. So it's
Mm-hmm.
literally good for our health. Hence the expression,
Hmm.
laughter is the best medicine. It may not be the best. Antibiotics play a role
Yes.
too. But and vaccines, I guess, and colonoscopies.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like I take laughter so seriously that it's even in the name of
Hmm.
my YouTube health show, Health, Humor, and Harmony. So,
Yes.
but clearly laughter is really in your genes. I didn't know about your sister and your whole damn family. They're all funny.
Yeah. 100%. Yes.
That's fantastic. Well, Mark, I am so grateful to you. I'm so glad I know you and honored to know you. Is there anything else that you want to, like any lasting impression or that you want to send to the viewers or that you want to talk about? Any shows that you've got coming up? What do you want to say? Anything you want.
I think what I want to say is no matter what you have going on in life, like just try to be optimistic and find the beauty and the positivity in what's going on. That is one thing that comedy has taught me. No matter what is going on in your life, just laugh. Find a way to laugh at it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we're going to end on that because I couldn't have ended that better. You ended on like laughter and positivity, and I couldn't agree more. And I also know that I believe expressing gratitude. People who express gratitude are happier. Happier people live longer. And I'm going to add that probably people who are funny and who laugh live happier and longer
Yes.
lives too.
I agree. Yep.
Thank you, my friend. I'm so happy to talk to you. I really appreciate your time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am so grateful to comedian Mark Gregory for taking the time to speak to me. Follow him on Instagram at Comic Mark Greg. Medically, Mark said so many things that resonated with me as a physician, I was about to hand him one of my degrees. The true secrets to healthy living really aren't secrets at all. Healthy diet, hydration, exercise, sufficient sleep, and laughter. I'll also add a good support system, a sense of purpose, and mindful practice. I should clarify that the human body is about 60% water, which is still a lot. So, drink enough water, think positive, and laugh. It's good for your health. Well, that's all for today. Here's your joke of the day, comedy style. What did the duck say to the comedian? You quack me up. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, make comments below, and follow me on Instagram at Health Humor Harmony Dr. Roy. Be well. I'll see you soon.